Go. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session of the Power App of the Dark Side. First, a big thank to the sponsors. Without the sponsors, this event wouldn't have been possible, of course. So, thank you, sponsors. Also, thank you, gold sponsors. My name is Tim Hermie. I'm a modern workplace architect. I'm a freelance IT consultant, mostly working with the collective consulting. I'm based out of Belgium. I'm also a Microsoft MVP Enterprise Mobility, so my main expertise is in endpoint management and security. My social is on there. If you want, you can follow me. My online alter ego is Cloudboy. Some personal stuff. I love skateboarding. But I broke my toe 4 months ago. I broke it 3 times. So I didn't skateboard in a very long time. I also love mountain climbing. I love Austria. And my favorite person in the world is my little one. All right.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Vanhamel. I'm a Power Platform, let's say a strategy consultant, so more like also helping organizations on the strategy side of the Power Platform. Yeah. Also a freelance IT consultant. I'm not yet an MVP, but I will go for it, for the MVP. Also a Scrum Master, so combining a bit both worlds, so technology with helping a sort of agile mindset at companies. And I try to bridge the gap. So for me, it's all about people with technology, so I try to be the, let's say, the inspirational people guy and to help, I would say, end users, key users, by using the Power Platform. Yeah. You can see my LinkedIn, you can see I have a blog site, I have also my Twitter account. So that's me. I have a follow-up assured, so here are my children, so my son and my 2 daughters, and yeah, was enjoying some party there, yeah. So also family guy. Okay.
And I can call him Poopy.
No, not here.
All right, we have a business case because I know this is mostly a Power Platform conference, or mostly in that area with a little bit of Azure and endpoint management. So we're blending 2 technologies of the Microsoft ecosystem. What is our business case? I'm going to be talking a little bit about Microsoft Endpoint Manager in a bit, but our business case is, of what I'm noticing with clients, I'm doing a lot of configuration with Endpoint Manager, where we are pushing apps to devices. But we also have licensed apps like Project, Visio, AutoCAD, and we want the end user to be able to apply for the application with an approval flow behind it, and once it gets approved, the app gets pushed or made available to the devices so they can install it themselves. That's in a nutshell what the business case is. More about Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Who knows Microsoft Endpoint Manager in here? All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it first. Microsoft Endpoint Manager is a part of the Microsoft ecosystem where we can deploy devices, configure devices, put some security profiles on devices. We have some reporting also. The most important part, what we're going to be talking about here, is in this area, deploying devices. So when we deploy devices deploy applications to a device, we can deploy them as required, as available. So required means that the application will be on the device when we are rolling it out. If we make it available, the end user has a company store where we can put apps available, which he can select and they will install themselves. Yeah? Most of the apps we will deploy as required, like a Chrome, because it has to be on the device when we roll it out. But in our business case, we want the end user to be able to deploy or to ask for a Visio or a Project or an AutoCAD. We want it to be an approval flow to the manager that the manager can approve, and once it's approved, the application will be made available in the company store where the end user can install it himself. Some key capabilities of Microsoft Endpoint Manager, but I'm not going to go too deep in this. I'm going to let Frank do all the talking in a little bit.
Thank you.
We can provision Windows Hello for Business. We can deploy apps. We have Windows Autopilot. It's a method of rolling out devices, a new method. We can push PowerShell scripts. The sky is the limit. Let's say it like that. All right.
Okay, some words about the Power Platform. I don't know if there's some knowledge here in the room. Power Platform, can you raise a hand just to see? Okay, lovely. Yeah, nice to see. Yeah, I started from ERP, let's say in 2006, and I had some, I would say 10 years of experience in implementing Dynamics AX. Don't know if there's some knowledge here. No? Okay. So ERP, and I would say the last couple of years, for me, it's platform thinking. And so within the Power Platform, and that's Darth Vader, yeah, you have some couple of components. As we have Power BI, we have the apps, and we have Automate, and also the chatbots. Yeah. But for me, it's all about platform thinking, and the red line within it is for me the data. So if you could say Power Automate could be the glue between data, the Power Apps could be user interfacing, entering data, viewing data, but for me, at the end, it's all about data. And how can you attain data and have it centralized, let's say, for example, in a dataverse. So a dataverse, seeing it as a list of tables, entities, combining them, and creating your own, I would say, data module. So I really believe that in some circumstances, you have some low citizen development, a bit fusion development, because we also have pro developers, so we also need to fusion both worlds. But for me, we have the data, and the dataverse is playing the role, I think, for a central database layer. Yeah? As you see from Microsoft, we have an ERP like Business Central, so the former Navision, I would say. We see that they are also bringing virtual entities within the dataverse. Yeah, okay, there are APIs, web services, but you see that dataverse is playing that role. Yeah? And at the connector side, it's like a Lego box. You have, I think more than 300 connectors. You can build your own custom connectors, but the data is going through different applications. Okay, so Power Platform, you have the 4, and then beneath you have Dataverse. Okay. So what we did, and this slide is just for mentioning that you have M365, you have Office 365, you have a separate layer as the Power Platform, and then on top, you could have, I would say, AI services, for example, in Azure, form recognizer to scan documents. But I think it's really a unique position for Microsoft to have the different positions, M365 platform, and then Azure Stack. Yeah? And Azure Stack, what I'm seeing at customers is it's playing a sort of consumption role. Imagine, I don't know who played already with AI Builder in the Power Apps. Okay, it's a fixed amount, and you pay on a monthly basis based on a certain amount of documents. Yeah, but you could have the same form recognizer AI model in Azure. So why not, as a partner, as system integrator, helping customers building their own AI model? Yeah, and as you might know, you have some 500 first documents in the AI service, which are for free for the customer. So think about, for me then, Azure as a consumption-based model, and try to mix it with the Power Platform. That's my, would say, advice on it. Last example is I'm also playing with chatbots. So you have virtual entities, you have Microsoft Louis, also in it. It's by how do I say it, language recognition. Someone is typing in Teams, what are the corona procedures? And Microsoft Louis is going to interpret it. What are you asking to me? And if he knows the subject, he will launch the Power Automate. So really, also based on consumption, and having your own, I would say, Q&A conversation module in Power Automate. So that's for me the power of the platform, let's say. Okay. RPA, another great product in my opinion, is putting an extra layer on top of it. Let's say you have an ERP like SAP, you could have the Dynamics. Sometimes you need an action, and you try to record it. So when I'm posting an invoice in SAP, I can link it towards a custom connector, but why not using RPA as a robotic process automation and performing the process? So it's really taking over your mouse and performing, I would say, the posting of the invoice. So try to link Power Platform also with the RPA component, which is part of the Power Automate section. Our solution, is it me? Yes, let's have a look. Yeah, so that's you.
So our solution, like I said, we have talking about Endpoint Manager and the Power Platform as our two separate solutions which we used to build this product. The applications will already be made in Microsoft Endpoint Manager. I'm going to show it in our demo in a little bit. They can be assigned to a group of users as required or available. So as required, it will get pushed automatically. And as available, they will be made available in the company store. So the end user can open the company portal on their device and click on the application they want to install. Frank created the Power Canvas app, and we're going to demo it in a little bit, where the end user can choose the product he wants, Visio, Project, or AutoCAD in our demo, and it will trigger the approval flow, but we will show the whole process in a little bit.
Okay, but let's say first, you need to think about Power Platform and sort of a governance. You need to have a clear data strategy, and also in place, I don't know if you have seen it in the admin center, we will show it, is that currently you also have a way to have a tenant strategy. So what you could do is you have your Office 365 tenant, and you can really isolate it from external tenants. It's in preview mode, so don't do it, I think, currently in production modus. But you can see that on the left side you have a certain tenant. In this case it's the Contoso, and at the right you have a second one. I think it's called Fabricam. So you can really, or you can say at the left side we block Contoso from other tenants. So that's why you could say I have some tenant isolation, what you could do. Or you could say, no, in this case, I don't want to block the connection from Fabricam to the left side. So inbound, outbound. So think about it, data strategy. Do you want that your tenant and your data is open to other tenants? So have it, and when you're at an enterprise customer, different locations, customer in Japan, customer in US, in Canada, perhaps they have different tenants. So think about perhaps blocking a certain tenant at that level. Okay. The other way around is this one that you let, I would say, from the left to the right. And in this case, you restrict the inbound connections. So Fabricam is not allowed to have, I would say, entrance to the Contoso. Okay, so it's a preview mode, so have a look at it, maybe interesting. Okay, solution, so we talked about, or I talked about tenant level. When you go a level deeper, you have the environment level. So within Power Platform, I think you might know, you have the, I would say, default environment, which is mainly, in fact, a sort of personal productivity environment. So when installing Office 365, you get the deployment of the Power Apps default environment, and it's a sort of container. You have your apps, the Power Automate, and then your Dataverse. So separate database based in a default environment. If you're doing, I would say, cross-team, team scenarios, building application, workflows, don't do it in the default environment because it has some restrictions. Okay. So personal productivity, what you also could do is, and I will show it later on tenant level, you could do it on a departmental level. So you could create for marketing, facility, sales, separate Power Apps environment if you need so. So, and within, that's important, within the containers, so I could not say I'm creating a Power App in the sales environment and I want to link to perhaps data which is in the commercial. So it's really separate containers in which data lives. Okay. So yeah, you need to have a tenant strategy and below that a good environment strategy. And for me, it's part of a good governance on the Power Platform. Another example, I have been on the enterprise customer, was this, is that for each region, you have a separate environment. And within a region, let's say Canada or US, you then have a sort of, like we call it in Dutch, Ootapstraat, dev, test, production. So really separating as a sort of application lifecycle management. And you build your Power Apps in the dev, you have a procedure to go into the test, and then you put it when tested, and when it's okay, you go to the production. Okay? So different ways in order to have an environment strategy on the Power Platform. So this is on a region based. The last one, a final document, Tim was mentioning in this first session a document of 1,000 pages, so this is also 120 pages. But really interesting is that in this case, they separated the environment on, okay, this is a critical project, yeah, and so the yellow one, and the green ones more like individual projects, yeah. So you could say people, so business users who are building applications, perhaps you need to let it go, let a sort of citizen development go, yeah. But if you're looking at critical data, perhaps you need separate environments, so the yellow ones, for the critical data, okay? And as you can see here, sometimes you can share an environment. So in this case, we have the green one in a sort of business development environment, a project development environment, and then going together to a test environment. Yeah? So you have to think about it. Yeah? Okay. And on top, you have the default one, personal productivity, and the second one could be that the developer has its own environment where he can develop in. Okay? Good. Last one, we are in one environment, so let's say we are in the dev environment, yeah, and we want to package solutions. So solutions you have to see as a combination set of different components. Could be a table, entities, could be Power App, could be a workflow in Power Automate, and you build it up in a certain environment, and then in a certain solution, okay? So when building, some best practice from Microsoft, on the left side, I'm in a development environment, yeah, and I have a solution which is of type unmanaged. So you provide a bit the source code, let's say, yeah? Or if you play a role as a company, as an ISV, yeah, you can offer it to your customers, also the sort of IP or the source code, yeah? So unmanaged. Yeah? When deploying, and for me it's also in a sort of procedure, you export it as managed. So you decide if you want to block, would say, the source code, and you go to a sort of test environment. So managed versus unmanaged. Yeah? And solutions, think of it as sort of zip files, in which all components are residing. Yeah? Okay, our little solution, what we did, yeah, I really want to talk about the platform. So I created some simple Canvas application. We had some nice SharePoint with some list on it. And so the data will flow from A to Z. Yeah? So there you see the SharePoint side. And then Power Automate, what I will do, because at the end, I need to reach the Active Directory groups from Tim. So that's why we use Power Automate as the glue to pass the data on. Yeah? And that I will show you hands-on also. And naturally, when I'm, I would say, registering an application, Tim is my manager, so you need to approve that I have my Visio on my PC. So you have the approval set. You could bring in also the, I would say, the Van Cat, I don't know, the adaptive cards in it, and so you can really combine different worlds from it. Yeah? And we will go into the details of this. Yeah, happy manager, happy end user. Think about also user interface when you're building applications. We are consultants, but it's not only about technology. So think about a right way to have a nice interface for the user. Yeah? And then at the end, when approval is done, we will get the user automatically in the AD group from Endpoint Manager.
Yeah. So let me elaborate a little bit. In Intune, we have made the applications. So the applications are already created. They are assigned to Azure AD groups, but the groups are empty. So what our solution does is simply putting the user in the group after an approval flow, and then the application will be made available in the company store. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and then we have R2 Day 2. So that's my little RPA friend as a second scenario where at the end we have the data, and perhaps we have a part of the workflow being performed by RPA. I really believe in the power. You could have UiPath or other solutions, but for me the RPA is really the bridge between on-premise legacy systems, because you're recording on screen, yeah, and you don't need to have the development coding. You can do it, but it's really about recording a screen, and that's for me really powerful. So you have to see it as a sort of macro when talking about Excel, doing a sort of automation of your process. Yeah. Also think RPA in a way that when you're talking to customers in ERP environments, creation of a customer, posting of an invoice, why not using RPA? Yeah. And Microsoft is also adding, I will show it also in Power Automate Process Advisor. It's also in the preview mode. So that's a way for me that you could say, okay, we have 3 users, so business users, they create a customer in SAP, but business user 1 performs it perhaps 30 seconds quicker than the other one. So it's also sort of process mining, go into the process and see which users need some attention or which users are more productive. Because ERP, I think as you might know, you can do a same process by several ways, creation of a customer. And that's sometimes not that easy for end users. Okay. Some demo. I've put everything open, so I've made a collection in Edge so that really every tab is open. Office 365 environment, a really clean environment in which we have the different applications from the Power Platform. So we have the apps, the Automate, and then, I don't think, there it is. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's not here, but you have Power BI, and if you want, you also have the bots, so the virtual agents. Yeah? So really think about on top as a layer of Office 365, M365 in this tenant. Yeah. Okay, I was talking about, in this case, about environments. So I'm now switch to modern, let's say, tenant level. Yeah, and I have different, in this case I have one environment, but here you can see that you could have dev, test, production. So think about the environment strategy, in having a clear environment. So different environments if you want. So this is not best practice, Tim, that we did it in the default, but
thank you, Frank.
Sometimes you have to do the mistake in order to show how not to do it. Okay, so tenant level, and then beneath it you have the different environments. And you need to set it up. When going to the environments and by using the admin center in Power Apps, have a look. Yeah. Going to the environment section, you can see that here I can create new environments. So when pushing the new, I have the possibility to say, okay, switch to modern, and perhaps this is my dev side. Yeah. We are in, I think we are in Europe again. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Little joke. Yeah. And we could say, okay, we have in this case a sandbox. Yeah? So Microsoft best practice is, if it's not a production environment, you use a type sandbox. If it's production, you take production. Yeah. And important, it's really some simple checkbox, but do you want to create a Dataverse, yes or no, for this environment? Not necessary, but think about, sometimes customers need just some SharePoint. I could perfectly uncheck it. Yeah? But if they really want to build their own data model, think about activating the Dataverse within this dev environment. Okay, I can create this. No, I cannot create this. We need to buy 1 giga in the admin center, so every environment needs to have 1 giga. But it's your money, Tim, so I will not do it in this case. Yeah. Okay. Okay, he's a freelancer, so...
I already got my first bill from Microsoft this morning, so it's okay.
Okay, good. We talked about the preview. So within the policies, I talked about the tenant isolation. So here you can find it. Yeah? So if you want, it's in the preview mode. Yeah? If you don't want to activate it, it's like this per default. Yeah? If you want to isolate it, put on the checkbox, like this. Yeah? And perhaps you need to apply separate tenant rules. So this is the case by saying the Fabricam can have an inbound connection to this tenant, so I can add a new rule to it. Okay, inbound, outbound, and then you have the tenant ID. Okay? So this is a way by saying, okay, we have isolation, but we have some exceptions, and those are the exception rules. So you have to see it like this. Yep. I will not do it. It takes some time. You have some time lapse when you activate it, so it's not on the fly. So it's there. Yep. Okay, who knows DLP, data loss prevention, Power Apps? Okay, good. Very good. It's there. What is the goal here is I want to have no data leaks. So I want to restrict that in my application. I have a combination set of connectors allowed from the business. So perhaps I'm a business user. I'm making my own little workflow. I use as a connector Twitter. Yeah, perhaps you don't want to as an organization. You have business data, and you don't want to that data is exposed to social media. So why not blocking Twitter in this DLP? Yeah, I will show you. I will not activate it, but I will show you. New policy. So let's say data loss prevention. And then I will go to the Canvas app later on. Yeah. So I give it a name. We have some buckets or containers. We have some 3 containers. And I could say, okay, I'm building my Canvas application, and it's okay for me that SharePoint is allowed. And so this is business sensitive data, and I move it to this container by using this functionality. And I could say, okay, perhaps I also want that Office 365 as a connector is moved to the business. So this combination set within this container is allowed. Yeah. In other words, if I'm building a Power App, I have some Salesforce within it, he will block. He will say, no, you have a data policy activated, so you're not allowed to do it. Okay. And a nice one, I think, I saw it last week also, is that, let's say Twitter. I could say, okay, for me it's perhaps if you have a Twitter account as an organization, I move it to business. Yeah. And Tim says, here's where the magic happens. So you can, per connector, also configure it. So I didn't know it last week also, but I saw this. And you could say, okay, within Twitter, I allow a retweet, a post of a tweet, so you can really go a level deeper on the connector. Yeah? And then that's interesting, I think. So going a bit deeper on action level within this connection. So let's say Twitter. Okay. At the end, you have the scope. So you could say we push the DLP or the data loss prevention to all the environments within this tenant, or you could say no, it's only on production or on test environment, so you can really scope it to different environments if you like to. Yeah? Okay. Good. So let's go to the application. As you might know, you are building your application in a certain environment. Normally, I would start with a solution, and I put in my Canvas application. Okay? So solutions, I talked about the managed and the unmanaged. You can find them here. Yeah? A little application, Power App, is like this one. Really simple. Yeah. So a couple of screens, and I think really nice is the connection is really automatically. So you could say, I push the data automatically to SharePoint. Yeah. This is perfectly possible, as you know, on the data source level. So in this application, I have the Office 365, and I have a SharePoint list behind it. Yeah? Sometimes you want it, so ask customers, do you want to retrieve the data in a sort of a database? Or you could perfectly say, no, we pass the data also virtually. Yeah? So what you could do is, when building a new screen, let's say really fast, this one, yeah. I can put on some certain labels, a text input, that's really simple. So this could be my name, my first name, a label for my last name, and then for my email address. Yeah? And then at the end, we need a nice button. Yeah. So think about it. Sometimes you do not want that data is captured in a SharePoint, in a Dataverse. And so why not passing the data by using the link with Power Automate? Yeah. So in this case, I would run the Power Automate. And within Power Automate, I can use 3 variables in order to pass the data. But data will flow in the run of Power Automate. It will not be stored. Yeah? So ask your question, is it necessary, and also GDPR, in order to have the data in a sort of database, or is it okay for you, dear customer, that you have data passed virtually? Okay. It's 5:30, okay, good. So, passing the data, and also keep in mind data which can be filled in by automatically. As you can see, Office 365, I use the connector, take my profile, and take my given name. So think about some fields automatically populated. So that's why user don't need to type it all over again. So those 3 are based on, I would say, the Office 365 connector, which is here. So really easy. Okay. Using application, so I demand project and Visio, and I submit my demand. It's running, okay, we will take care of it, part of the dark side. So data is passed to a SharePoint. Yeah. Let's have a look. So I have my SharePoint page, I have made a list, and within this list, really easy, and we define some columns. We do a refresh. And at the end, as you can see, I think is this one? No. A few seconds ago. Yeah, I have also the data. You could have some statuses. Tim said, okay, could we use a sort of status for the manager that he can see, okay, who has asked the application, and some retrieval of, okay, what is the status? It can be demanded or rejected. So perfectly possible. Okay. So having the data pushed from the Power App Canvas application, getting it in a SharePoint list, yeah, and then having a workflow, Power Automate. Hope it will run. It's busy. Okay, it's running and asking me to perform an approval. So that's why he's still in the status of running. Yeah. And we have a clear need for an approval. You can go in the run, and you will see that what I did is, item is created on the SharePoint. I retrieved the user based from the email address. So I have the user ID because I need it in Active Directory. So that's why the get user in this, so the user ID, and then initializing some variables. Yeah. And then it's waiting, apply to each. And so for each demand, I asked a project, I asked Visio, and for each demand, I get, as a manager, the approval in Teams. Yeah. And that's, I think, powerful because, yeah, it's collaboration. We work a lot in Teams, and we get the approval flow automatically by saying, okay, Frank is demanding this. We have some dynamic fields on what he's demanding, yeah, and I could have the link automatically to SharePoint. Yeah, so just by clicking it, and I go, okay, this was a demand on this date with the attachments, so no problem with that. And I say, I'm Tim now. Okay, Frank. He's not blocking me. So approve. And because I have a sort of apply to each, so each time I have the second demand of a second application, I also get it for Visio now. So I don't want to have it in, I would say, one approval step. I want to have for each time. And this is also okay. Good. So passing data from a Canvas app to a SharePoint, perhaps with some virtual data set without SharePoint, or combination set with Dataverse, also possible. Yeah. Approval is done. And then when going back to where it is, in the run, what I did is we have the variables, we have the approval step. Approval was okay for this demand. And then, let's say for the project one, he went to the left branch, yeah, and he also added the user to the Active Directory group. Okay? So AD group, and that's Tim's business, is also a unique ID, but I needed to add Frank as a user within this Endpoint Manager AD group. Yeah. Okay. This I've set, and by using some condition control, the variables, we can have the information populated. Okay. Okay, this is this. Yeah. Okay, so let's say we perform this, but sometimes we want to add the RPA side of things. Yeah. So think about it, and that's my other environment, which I've opened. Let's say there's this one. Yeah. Think about it as a sort of a copy of the flow. Yeah? So you can see it's looking the same, but at the end of things, I've added the blue one is the Power Automate desktop. Yeah? So what I did is, when building up the Power Automate, I have here the group ID. Yeah? I have here the user ID. So this will give me the user ID, and those two parameters I give to RPA because he needs it. Yeah? And this little block. Yeah? So I made an RPA flow. I gave it a name. Yeah? You can run it on an attended mode or an unattended, when, for example, on a server with no user interaction. Yeah? And I give back RPA. So these are the two parameters. Okay? And imagine this is running on a server, the flow is running, and then at the end it says, oh, I have to do an RPA. He takes over the mouse and performs. It's okay, Tim? Yeah. It performs the adding the user to the AD group. Yeah. So when installing, in this case, I have took the attended modus. Yeah. I have my Power Automate desktop. I gave it a name, and I have some, I would say, macro, in this case, with the different steps. Yeah. Sorry, it's in Dutch. I needed to change it, but so what it does is you open the edge, you push a button in when signing into Endpoint Manager. Yeah, he fills in at a certain in the Endpoint Manager then the group ID, and you can see that I've entered two input parameters. So I need the group ID and I need the object ID. Okay, so those two, they will come from my Power Automate workflow. Okay? He takes it, yeah, and he performs the action. Yeah? And then at the end, you could say, I click up UI element. It's really an Endpoint Manager. He clicks on a certain text. He enters the user ID. He finds Frank, and he added to the AD group, yeah, by using RPA. Yeah? And for me, it's really magic. Why? I will show you. You can have a recording. It's like in the days we had some Walkman, and we pushed play and recorded something. It's really like that. And for me, the magic is you are recording a screen, and you are not typing some coding. And you could do it by drag and drop it in the RPA, but here you could say, okay, I start my recording. Yeah. Okay, you need some Power Automate extension in your Chrome. Yeah. But he's capturing everything. Yeah? So I'm doing this, then I click on this button, then I say, oh, okay, this is nice, solutions. Okay, this is error, no problem. Yeah. But you can see that he's performing things. Yeah? And he's really recording what I'm doing. Yeah? And at the end, when I push finish, he's adding those 4 steps here. Yeah? For me, that's magic, because when playing, he knows where to click. Yeah? You have to test it good, because sometimes he does sometimes a bit of a mess, but test it out good, and then when it's running, you're really confident that he will perform the action as a computer. Okay, good. So it's combining different worlds, And at the end, perhaps in the Power Automate flow, just add the RPA part of it. Yeah? And then Tim, now it's your turn. Tim will talk about the final piece.
Yeah. So like I said, everything will be in Endpoint Manager, and let me show you fast.
No. Yeah. Okay. It's okay.
All right.
No multi-factor.
Nope.
Yeah, okay.
So Endpoint Manager, the app is already there. Like I said, Endpoint Manager is a suite where we can do a lot of things, push configuration to profiles, to endpoints, to devices. We can roll out devices, but we're speaking about applications here. So what did I do? I created 3 applications, but I'll show you one. The Visio. And of course, we want the Visio also to install next to the installed Office version already. We don't want it to trigger an uninstall. This application is already made. It's simply based on an XML. I'm just going to show it real quick, where we match the installed installation of the Office suite. This application is assigned to this group, and what the app of Frank did was, after approval flow, he just adds the user to the group. You can see here that the group is available for enrolled devices. So this means that the end user will, in his company store, now see the icon from Visio, and he can then click on install, and it will install next to his installed Office installation already. With our session, we're going to show that within the whole Microsoft ecosystem, you can really blend the different technologies. You can even go a step further, create another app for the manager where he can track all installations, where he can reject it, where he can deny it, or we can take the license back that the user gets back out of the group, of course. So I think we're round.
Yes. I think if we have some slides, let's have a look.
Do we have slides?
Do we have slides? Yeah, okay. Let's have a look. No, I think it was.
Yeah, the Q&A.
The Q&A there. So feel free if you have some questions, some remarks. Then we have some, I would say, 8 minutes left to have the Q&A. And thank you very much for the attention. Are there questions? No questions? Yes, tell me.
The cross-tenant settings, because I've seen something similar on the Azure AD side as well.
Yes?
Are these specific to the Power Platform side, or what do they encompass? Do they also encompass this?
They're aside the Azure session, the Azure tenant, but I'm not an Azure expert, but it's separately, if I've read, Power Platform and then Azure. So you have to test about both. If you activate sort of isolation on the Azure side and on the Power Platform, then you have to see how do it react. But I did tested it out, yeah, to make sure. Yeah. But good question. Other questions? Are you convinced about the platform? It didn't show BI and chatbots, so it's really powerful, in my opinion. Yeah. No questions? Everyone wants to go home?
Or have some drinks.
Or have some, yeah, no beers.
I would like a beer. Right, thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening, and thanks for the sponsors again. Thank you very much.